All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Look, if you're a parent of a child with special educational needs and disabilities, trying to keep up with government policy, well, it can honestly feel like you're trying to learn a completely new language, right? We know there's an official parent fact sheet coming out shortly, but while we wait for that, the WPCC really wanted to put this resource out there. We built this to give you a clear, structured overview of the newest guidance, and most importantly, what it actually means for children and young people with SEND, and of course, their families. So let's ground ourselves in the actual news here. On June 25th, 2026, the Department for Education dropped 3 major new documents. We're talking about the Inclusive Education Estates Guidance, the Inclusive Mainstream Fund Guidance, and the Inclusion Basis Guidance. Together, this trio really sets out the government's expectations for improving inclusion. And they're planning to do this through targeted investment, updated guidance, and some very real changes to everyday practice across mainstream education. But let's be real, right? This is the only question that actually matters to us. What does this mean for your child? To kind of make sense of all this policy jargon, I want you to imagine your child's school as a house that we're renovating. We're going to look at 3 main things today. First, the foundation, so the everyday classroom teaching. Then, the walls, the physical environment and sensory spaces. And finally, the specialized rooms, those targeted areas built for very specific needs. To help us navigate this, here's our roadmap. First up, the new SEND guidance, then the Inclusive Mainstream Fund, followed by Designing Inclusive Education Estates. Fourth, we'll look at what are inclusion bases. Fifth, the real-world impact, and finally, what this means for you. Section 1. The new SEND guidance, a collaborative trio. These 3 documents, they aren't just isolated policies. They're actually working together to push the whole system towards being inclusive by design, combining the financial investment, physical building adaptations, and specialized teaching practices. Section 2, the Inclusive Mainstream Fund, the classroom experience. Think of this as the foundation of that house we talked about. It's all about the everyday, universal classroom experience your child has right alongside their peers. And let me tell you, the government is putting some serious weight behind this foundation. The Inclusive Mainstream Fund represents an investment of over £500 million per financial year over the next 3 years. That is a massive chunk of change, and it's aimed specifically at equipping mainstream settings to become truly inclusive by design. Now, a crucial point here is cutting through the jargon. You're going to hear the term universal offer thrown around a lot. For your child, a strong universal offer simply means receiving high-quality adaptive teaching and early help right there in the classroom. And here's the kicker. Without necessarily needing to wait around for a formal assessment or a statutory diagnosis. It's all about meeting those needs early, just as a standard, everyday practice. Schools actually have to invest their slice of this funding in line with what's called the 7 principles of inclusion. Now, for us parents, 2 of these should really jump out at you. The requirement for high-quality adaptive teaching and the mandate for strong partnerships with families. Schools are explicitly being told that adaptable classrooms and actually engaging with parents, those are absolute non-negotiable pillars. And here is where it gets very real and honestly, highly accountable. Schools are mandated to publish an inclusion strategy right on their website by December 31st, 2026. Seriously, mark your calendars for that one because this is going to be a public document detailing exactly how they plan to remove barriers to learning for children with SEND. Moving on to Section 3, Designing Inclusive Education Estates, the physical space. So transitioning from the foundation to the walls of our house, this guidance is really all about making the physical environment of mainstream schools accommodating for absolutely everyone. The DFE wants schools to seriously consider 10 core elements of inclusive design. We're talking about fixing acoustics to reduce overwhelming noise, better lighting, clearer visual comfort, easy navigation, and even access to nature. The guidance actually recognizes that sensory overload and physical barriers literally trigger anxiety and dysregulation. By designing these out, schools become so much more accessible. The guidance also provides some fantastic real-life examples, like creating a calm, quiet space specifically designed for emotional regulation and sensory comfort. And, adaptations don't always mean multi-million-pound rebuilds. Sometimes it's just about repurposing an underused room with the right seating, maybe some softer lighting, and sensory tools, just to give a child a safe space to regulate so they can comfortably get back to learning. Section 4. What are inclusion bases, targeted support? This is moving to the specialized rooms built into our house. It's all about providing that targeted support for those whose needs go a bit beyond the everyday universal offer. Let's bust a little more jargon here. Inclusion base. This is the new official terminology. It's replacing older terms you might be more used to hearing, like SEN unit, or resourced provision, or pupil support unit. Basically, an inclusion base is fundamentally a part of the mainstream school. It's not some separate institution. It's designed to deliver specific interventions and expert teaching right there on site. Now, a really crucial concept here is the continuum model. For parents, the big takeaway is that specialized support absolutely does not mean total isolation. Children might spend most of their time in mainstream classes and just visit the base for targeted sessions, or, vice versa. It's supposed to be a seamless flow designed entirely around what works best for the child. It's also super helpful to know how these are actually organized behind the scenes. There are basically two underlying models. First, support bases, which are commissioned and funded directly by the school or academy trust to deliver what's called targeted plus support. And then there are specialist spaces, which are commissioned and funded by the local authority for specialist support. Knowing this just kind of helps you understand where the funding, the coordination, and the admissions processes are coming from for your child's specific tier of support. Section 5, Real-World Impact. The Wakefield Council Case Study. Policy documents are great and all, but does investing in the physical space actually work? Well, a fantastic case study from Wakefield Council proves it really does. Let's quickly walk through what they did. Wakefield Council allocated over £2 million to schools to create more supportive environments. The schools identified that these busy, crowded corridors were causing massive anxiety and dysregulation for students. So, using these targeted grants, they repurposed unused rooms into calm retreat spaces. The result? Way calmer classrooms, a sharp drop in dysregulation, and crucially, children were returning to class more settled and actually ready to learn. It's just a perfect example of how environmental changes directly improve the student experience. Section 6. What this means for you, empowering parents. Let's tie all of this directly back to you, the WPCC community. How can you use this massive dump of government guidance to advocate effectively for your kid? As a parent, knowledge is hands down your best advocacy tool. First up, keep an eye out for that official parent fact sheet, which is going to break this down even further. Second, hold your school accountable. Look for their published inclusion strategy by December 2026 to see exactly how they're planning to use their funds. And third, use this new vocabulary. When you sit down with your school's Senko, explicitly ask them things like, hey, what does the universal offer look like for my child in their daily classroom? Or is an inclusion base an option for targeted support here? Which leaves us with a final thought to end on. With the government committing at least £3.7 billion in high-needs capital investment by 2030, plus over $500 million a year to the Inclusive Mainstream Fund, the resources are literally being deployed right now. The big question is, how will your child's local school step up and utilize these funds to build a truly inclusive strategy where your child can achieve and thrive? Stay engaged, keep asking those questions, and we'll absolutely be right here to help you navigate the whole shebang.